1,000 years ago, the Kirin clan, at the cost of countless lives, helped Celeste subdue the demons and seal them in the abyss of shadows. A millennium later, because of a single statement from the demon prince, I've heard that Kirin brains can cure my migraines. My clan was massacred overnight. I stood amidst the ruins of my homeland, staring blankly for a long time. Mother, you once told me that the world was at peace, that Celeste was kind-hearted, and that her godly powers, defying the heavens, were a blessing to the three realms. But now, do you still believe that? The day before my clan was slaughtered, my little brother Leo, not yet in his full form, chirped incessantly, begging me to go to the mortal world to buy him candied fruit. Annoyed, I almost kicked him away, but Mother stopped me with a smile. "Phoenix, that's your brother," she said. "He's the dearest person to you in all the realms. You can't treat him like a wild beast." "The dearest person," she said. I was born with dulled senses and couldn't grasp the meaning of those words, but I always heeded Mother's advice. So, I put my claws down and promised him I'd bring the candied fruit back the next day. Leo was so happy that he rolled around on the ground. I looked at him with disdain, muttering, "Noisy." But when dawn broke the next day, I still flew down to the mortal world to buy the candied fruit. When I returned holding the candied fruit, I stood at the entrance of our home, utterly lost. The ground was littered with Kirin corpses. My little brother, who had beamed up at me just that morning and called me brother, now lay decapitated on the ground, his head severed from his body. His skull had been cracked open, and his brain spilled onto the earth. With great effort, I pried open his tightly clenched hand. Inside was the night pearl I had casually given him on his 100th birthday. I stared at the pearl for a long time before finally speaking. "You fool," I murmured. "You're dead. What's the point of holding on to this? It's deformed now. You must have been in so much pain." I sat there from daylight to nightfall. When Sovereign arrived, he looked at me, first in shock, then shook his head. "At least there's a survivor," he said. "The Kirin clan isn't entirely extinct." I looked up at him in confusion and asked what should be done. He seemed startled by my question, then sighed. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll protect your life." This time Celeste went too far. All of this because of a passing remark from the demon prince? It's outrageous. I've already reprimanded her. She won't trouble you again. I couldn't understand. I stared at him blankly and asked, "But Mother always said that those who kill must pay with their lives. Why did you only scold her?" His compassionate expression cracked slightly, and anger flickered across his face. "Ridiculous," he exclaimed. "Do you even know who you're talking about? She is the ruler of heaven and earth, the divine who subdued demons and exterminated monsters to bring a millennium of peace to the realms. How dare you harbor thoughts of killing her?" The layers of pressure from his words crushed me, leaving me gasping for air. I opened my mouth to speak, but blood surged up, spilling from my lips before I could utter a sound. Gritting my teeth, I pushed back. "You're wrong," I said. "Mother told me that the millennium of peace wasn't her doing alone. The Kirin clan sacrifices, nearly wiping out the dragons and leaving only a handful of survivors, that's what brought about this era of peace. It wasn't her alone." With every word I spoke, the pressure on me grew heavier. Just when I thought my bones were about to shatter and I would be crushed into nothingness, the heavens began to tremble. I felt the presence of countless Kirin rushing to my aid, their voices echoing, "Spare him, Sovereign! Spare him, Sovereign! Spare him, Sovereign!" The voices overlapped, growing louder and louder, filling the air with dragon roars, bird cries, and tiger growls. These echoes formed a protective barrier around me, and then I fainted. When I awoke, I was already in the celestial palace. Celeste stood above me, looking down as if I were an ant. "Dusk's migraines have been mostly cured," she said indifferently. "Your Kirin clan's sacrifice served its purpose. It wasn't in vain. I'll issue a decree to make you a divine lord. Stop causing trouble." Ignoring the deep ache in my bones, I stubbornly looked up at her. "But my mother said that those who kill must pay with their lives. I don't want to be a divine lord. I just want you to uphold the laws of mortals." Celeste squinted at me for a long moment before suddenly laughing. "Do you even know who Dusk is?" she asked. "If you want justice, then curing Dusk should be this world's top priority. Dusk was once the ancient who willingly sacrificed himself a millennium ago to mend the shattered realms with his flesh and blood. If you're talking about justice, then every living being in this world owes him their lives. Her eyes sparkled as she spoke of Dusk, the same way Mother's eyes lit up when she spoke of Father. I lowered my head, thinking carefully about whether Celeste could be right. But I'm a bit slow, and no matter how much I thought about it, I couldn't figure it out. If only Mother were here, she would have told me whether those words were true. Celeste seemed to lose interest in talking to me and waved her hand dismissively. "Leave," she said. But I didn't move. I stubbornly believed that the deaths of my father, mother, brother, uncles, and cousins couldn't be brushed aside so easily. Celeste grew irritated. "What do you want, then?" she asked. After some thought, I answered firmly, "Those who kill must pay with their lives." As soon as the words left my mouth, a spell struck me, slamming me to the ground. I coughed up a mouthful of blood as Celeste sneered at me. "Fool," she said. "Only the strong have the right to speak of their desires. Only the strong can wield the power of life and death. Justice has always been reserved for the powerful." Clutching my chest, I struggled to stand. I nodded blankly. So it turned out that to kill her, I just needed to be stronger than her. That's it. If someone had told me earlier, I wouldn't have wasted so much time. Unfortunately, the lesson that the strong prevail wasn't something my mother ever taught me. She only told me to reason with others. As I clutched my chest and staggered out of the hall, I bumped into a man clad in dark robes. His face was adorned with a bright smile, and the moment he saw me, his eyes lit up. He rushed toward Celeste. "Ah, Celeste, there's even a Kieran here. Quickly crack his skull open for me. Alive, of course." The last little Kieran with fiery clouds on its head tasted amazing when eaten alive. Hearing this, I couldn't help but turn to look at him. Among the Kieran clan, only my brother had fiery clouds on his head. Celeste gently caressed his face with affection. "This is the last Kieran in the world. We can't kill him. Otherwise the other beasts won't remain subdued." Dusk lowered his eyes with resignation. "It's just a beast. What's the big deal?" I stopped listening and limped out of the divine realm. "Mother, didn't you say the divine loved the world? Then why does it feel so different from what you told me?" When I returned to the mortal realm, Drake and Faye were waiting for me at home. Seeing me covered in wounds, they trembled with anger before letting out a sigh. Faye gently stroked my head and said, "Nix, stop provoking them. Just live your life well." Confused, I looked at Faye. "Why? Shouldn't murderers pay with their lives?" Faye shook her head. "No. Living is what matters most. You're the last bloodline of the Kieran clan. There's nothing more important than surviving. Besides, your mother probably didn't want you to seek revenge. She just wanted you to live." I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up a shovel and started digging a hole at the entrance of our home. My father, my mother, and my foolish little brother, they all deserved a proper burial. Holding my brother's head, I suddenly remembered what Dusk had said. My brother had his brain split open while still alive. It must have hurt. It must have hurt so much. No wonder the luminous pearl in his hand was crushed out of shape. Just this morning he was so full of life, and now he's as cold as ice. No one will ever chirp and call me brother again. It's so quiet. Yes, so quiet. But it's too quiet. A gust of wind stung my eyes. Why were there tears? Mother said I was born with dulled senses. It must be the wind. Yes, it's just the wind. After burying my father and mother, I leaned against their gravestone, muttering, "Mother, you used to tell me the world was at peace and the divine was compassionate. What about now? Do you still believe that?" "Mother, I still think murderers should pay with their lives." "Mother, I want to go to the eastern wilds and reclaim the other half of my powers." "Mother, I don't want to listen to you anymore." "Mother, don't blame me." "Mother, I just miss you a little, and I miss my brother too." When I reached the eastern wilds, Sage was leaning against his true form, a massive tree waiting for me. When he saw me, he sighed. "So you've come after all." I asked him, "How did you know I'd come?" Sage was a tree spirit. No one knew exactly how many millennia he had lived. All I knew was that ever since Mother could remember, he had always been like this. Back then, Mother had pleaded with him to seal away my powers. He hesitated for a long time before saying, "During the war between the divine and the demons, the great beings of the Beast clan perished, leaving them defenseless. Heaven, in its mercy, bestowed this little boy upon you. He is extraordinarily gifted and will one day safeguard the Beast clan. Why would you want to suppress his powers? Mother laughed heartily. If it were anyone else, I wouldn't bother. But my son was born with dulled senses. He doesn't know his own strength. I'm afraid he'll hurt others. I don't ask for him to achieve greatness, just for him to live a healthy and peaceful life. Besides, the world is at peace now, and Celestial is a benevolent ruler. The Beast clan doesn't need a child to protect them. In the end, Sage couldn't refuse Mother and cast a spell to strip me of my powers. Sage looked into my eyes, and for once his usually calm gaze stirred with emotion. He said, I didn't agree with your mother when she asked me to take your powers, and now as you seek to reclaim them, I feel compelled to dissuade you again. Let me ask you, once you regain your powers, what will you do? Kill, I replied. An eye for an eye, blood for blood. Sage shook his head. And that's precisely why I must dissuade you. With your full powers, killing Celeste would be effortless. But have you considered what would happen afterward? The world would descend into chaos and countless lives would be lost. I'm not asking you to think from the perspective of all beings in the three realms. Just think from your mother's perspective. Do you think this is what she would want? I whispered, Mother. She truly was a paragon of compassion. There's no way she would want to see the three realms in turmoil. Seeing my hesitation, Sage let out a breath of relief. If you're uncertain, stay here in the eastern wilds and think it over. Take as long as you need. Time is abundant for a divine beast like you. Even if it takes tens of thousands of years, it won't matter much. But later, in countless sleepless nights, I would wonder why I hesitated. If I had been decisive back then, perhaps the events that followed wouldn't have occurred. Seasons came and went. I had already spent over a century in the eastern wilds. The silence of this place was finally broken by a small worm who accidentally stumbled into the barrier. Her body was pitch black, barely clinging to life, as though she might die at any moment. I recognized her as the youngest daughter of Drake's family, Drake's precious little girl, Worm. I carried Drake as I sprinted to Sage. Without asking a single question, Sage activated his spiritual energy and continuously transferred it to Drake. I remembered Mother once telling me that Sage's healing abilities were among the best in the three realms, even capable of reviving the dead and regenerating bones. Yet, despite such powers, it still took Drake 7 days and 7 nights of unconsciousness before waking up, which showed just how severe her injuries were. The moment she regained consciousness, she clung to me and cried uncontrollably. I patted her back, asking what had happened. Through her sobs, Drake told me that Uncle Drake and Aunt Faye were dead, and both the Dragon and Phoenix clans had been annihilated, just like the Kieran clan once was. She revealed that Uncle Drake had expended all his cultivation to save her. Each word she spoke weighed heavier on my heart. Drake continued, saying that Celeste had promised to marry Dusk and vowed to offer him both heaven and earth in their union. Dusk desired a phoenix robe, so Celeste casually ordered the extermination of the Phoenix clan, plucking every phoenix feather to craft the robe. Then Dusk expressed his wish for a dragon horn carriage, and Celeste again decreed the slaughter of the dragon clan, snapping off every dragon's horn. Through her tears, Drake choked out that before she was pushed away to safety, she saw Celeste holding Dusk and saying, I promised you both heaven and earth, and I will not deceive you. Whatever you desire in this world, I will give it to you. I will prove to all of creation that I love you. At this point, Drake was crying so hard she could barely speak. She clung to me and asked, Phoenix, tell me, what does her love for him have to do with us? Why did my father, my mother, and all my brothers and sisters have to die? I had no answer for her because I didn't know. Stroking her head, my thoughts involuntarily drifted to my younger brother, Leo, that mischievous little Kieran who had yet to be named before being devoured alive by Dusk. I turned to Sage. What should I do now? Sage remained silent for a long time before letting out a sigh. The fault lies with Divine for her cruelty, but I must still urge you not to act recklessly. The peace of the three realms still depends on her. If you were to take up your sword and storm the 9 heavens now, it would surely lead to untold suffering. Is that what you want? I nodded, though Sage would never live to see the day I came to terms with this advice. The whole world knew of the ancient arbor in the eastern wilderness, a tree so old it was said to share the lifespan of heaven and earth. One day, Dusk casually mentioned wanting to craft a grand bed from arbor's wood. Without hesitation, Celeste assembled an entourage of celestial lords and led them deep into the wilderness to seize it. Though Elder was ancient, his cultivation was devoted to healing and concealment, leaving him no match for Celeste. He was defeated within moments. In his final breath, Elder used his remaining spiritual energy to cast a cloaking spell over Drake and me, hiding us from sight. I lay motionless beside Elder's lifeless body, pressing my hand tightly over Drake's mouth to stifle any sound. Soon, the pristine and untouchable Celestial descended alongside her beloved ancient. Standing beside Elder's corpse, they began discussing what shape the bed should take. Dusk gestured enthusiastically, his face alight with excitement, while Celeste stood by, gazing at him adoringly. Dusk laughed. "Celeste, you're so good to me." Celeste's eyes were filled with tenderness, her gaze fixated solely on him. "1,000 years ago, failing to protect you was the greatest regret of my life. Heaven itself took pity on me and returned you to my side. This time I will not let you suffer any grievance. Whatever you desire, I will give it to you with all the power of the heavens." The golden glow of the setting sun bathed them in its light. They looked every bit the perfect couple, if only their love didn't come at the cost of mountains of corpses and rivers of blood. I left Drake safely hidden within the Bodhi cavern of the eastern wilderness. As I prepared to leave, she clung to my arm, her eyes brimming with tears. "Phoenix, are you going to leave me behind and go alone?" I stroked her head. "If my brother were alive, he would be about your age by now, fully transformed. He was the most beautiful Kirin of our generation. He would have been breathtaking in his human form. When he was alive, I often found him noisy and annoying. But now I miss him. I miss him so much. Yet for their selfish desires, they destroyed my home, killed my brother, and decimated my clan. This blood-soaked hatred cannot go unanswered." Drake stared at me in shock. "Phoenix, are you saying?" I looked down at the sword in my hand. "I will ascend the 9 heavens and shatter the skies with my blade. I want to see just how precious the love of those gods truly is." When I arrived at the 9 heavens, the entire palace was filled with luminous pearls, densely scattered every 5 steps. Golden threads entwined each pearl, and upon closer inspection, I realized they were made from the tendons of deer. A passing celestial servant remarked enviously, "The divine is so good to the prince, gathering the splendor of the world to ensure the wedding is flawless." Without hesitation, I raised my sword and struck the celestial servant down, sparing not a moment of mercy. A life lived without reverence for life itself deserves death. The commotion quickly drew Sovereign to the scene. He paused upon seeing me, then resumed his usual compassionate demeanor. Gazing at the servant's corpse, he sighed, "A life is still a life. Why did you kill her?" Sheathing my sword, I bowed to Sovereign. "When I was a child, Mother told me that Sovereign was the kindest and most compassionate of all celestial beings. Sadly, I was born without the ability to comprehend such things. But today, seeing your reaction to the death of a mere servant, I finally understand a little of what she meant." Sovereign froze for a moment, seemingly surprised by how agreeable I was. He waved his hand dismissively and said, "Serving as a sword-bearer in the celestial palace is indeed a grave offense. However, considering your young age and the fact that you are the last of your kind, a Kirin, I will let it slide. You may leave." I gripped my sword tighter and stepped forward. "You may let it slide, but I have a question for you. You wear that sanctimonious expression every day, acting as if you care for all. Where were you when Celeste rampaged through my beast clan? Open your damned eyes and take a good look at these 33 heavens. Every 5 steps, there's a relic, each one a fallen soul from my clan. Did you ever see them?" As soon as I finished speaking, Sovereign's eyes flared with murderous intent. Yet before he could act, scattered immortals arrived from all directions, creating discord among themselves. Sovereign's expression dimmed, his teeth clenched as he suppressed his killing intent, reverting to his usual look of compassion. An elder immortal who had once been friendly with the Beast Clan tried to persuade me, "Little Kirin, leave now before Celestial unleashes her fury. The Kirin clan must survive with at least one bloodline intact." I remained unmoved, stepping forward again to glare directly at Sovereign. "Did you ever see them?" I pressed. Sovereign, intent on maintaining his hypocritical facade, could not bring himself to kill the last surviving Kirin. He sighed deeply. Indeed, Celeste's actions were excessive. I have already reprimanded her. After her wedding, she and her consort will offer an apology to the Beast clan. I tilted my head back and laughed bitterly. The lives of millions in the Beast clan are less significant than her wedding? Countless mountains of corpses and rivers of blood from near-extinct clans, all worth nothing more than a mere apology? Is that it? Sovereign's facade was on the verge of crumbling when an overwhelming pressure suddenly swept through the area. I steadied myself, and then I saw Celeste arriving on the clouds with Dusk by her side. She stood a mere 10 feet away from me, looking at me with the same disdain one might have for an ant. I command the seas and the lands, ruling the heavens. If I were to offer an apology, it would already be an extraordinary honor for them. Besides, their death served to add splendor to my wedding and bring Dusk joy. Their fleeting lives in this world are not wasted. I took a deep breath, trembling with rage as I gripped my sword tightly. You treat life as mere grass and all beings as fodder. How dare you claim the title of supreme ruler of the heavens? My words caused Celeste's calm demeanor to falter. She demanded, "Who are you to criticize me? Do you not understand that if it weren't for me vanquishing demons and monsters, there would be no peace across the lands for the past 1,000 years? Always the same rhetoric." I looked coldly at Celeste. The 1,000 years of peace were never solely your doing. 1,000 years ago, the Beast clan followed your orders to bring peace to the seas, sacrificing countless of their own. And you, as the enforcer of the three realms, not only failed to protect the Beast clan, but also turned your blade against them 1,000 years later. Celeste, how dare you call yourself divine? Celeste roared in anger. What do you know? 1,000 years ago, Dusk willingly sacrificed himself to nourish the lands with his blood and flesh. It is because of him that this era of prosperity exists. You owe him. Whatever he demands now is his rightful due. I smirked and replied, "When I was a child, my mother told me an amusing tale. She said that the one who was meant to sacrifice themselves for the world 1,000 years ago was Celestial herself. Yet on the day the ritual was to take place, she was intercepted by demons. Ancient, unwilling to let the world suffer, stepped into the ritual without hesitation. Back then I thought it was just a story, but now it seems the invincible Celestial was somehow stopped by these so-called demons. And now, seeing how she indulges this fiend, one must wonder if it's out of genuine affection or guilt. Celestial, who ceaselessly reminds the three realms of their debt to Dusk. How do we know who owes him most?" With every word I spoke, Celeste's face grew paler. Dusk, noticing her emotional turmoil, turned to tightly embrace her waist. "Celeste, I don't care about what happened 1,000 years ago. All I know is that I love you now, and you treat me well. No matter what I ask for, you do everything in your power to fulfill it. That's all that matters. The past is irrelevant. It truly doesn't matter." Celeste was deeply moved by Dusk's words, her eyes reddening slightly. "Dusk, I swear upon my divine name that I will betray the three realms before I ever betray you. As long as you are happy, I don't care if I become infamous. If it pleases you, I will slaughter the three realms for you." Blood-red anger filled my vision as a deep-seated rage consumed my very soul. "What kind of monsters are you? Your disgusting love is not worthy of being compared to the three realms." Celeste stepped forward with Dusk by her side, sneering. "What kind of monster am I? I am Celestial, the ruler of the heavens, the strongest being in existence. I command this world, and all creatures bow before me." I met Celeste's overwhelming aura without hesitation. "Then what of justice and the order of heaven?" "I am justice. I am the order of heaven." With that, Celeste gently stroked Dusk's head and asked him, "Dusk, didn't you say you wanted to taste Kirin brain? Shall I capture him for you so you can eat it fresh?" Dusk looked up at Celeste and laughed heartily. "Yes, Celeste, that sounds wonderful." Celeste summoned 40% of her power and attacked me. If this had been me 2 weeks ago, I would have been utterly crushed by such an overwhelming assault. Not killed outright, but gravely injured and incapable of further resistance. But now, with my full strength restored, I effortlessly dodged her strike. Celeste frowned, a rare seriousness crossing her face as she realized this was the first time she truly regarded me as an opponent. She unleashed her full power, attacking me with everything she had. I countered her every move, and after exchanging more than 10 blows, she began to falter. Around us, murmurs filled the air, but none dared step forward. The battle between two unparalleled powerhouses was nothing short of devastating. Anyone who dared to step forward would surely meet their end. Celeste's face began to pale, her attacks losing their precision. Within a mere 100 moves, I had her pinned to the ground. As I held my sword against her neck, disbelief flooded her eyes. "Impossible, impossible. How could you?" she stammered. "If you possessed such power, how could the Kirin clan have been annihilated?" I couldn't help but laugh at her question. "Let me tell you a joke," I said, grinning. "I was born with extraordinary spiritual power. By the time I was 6 months old, I could single-handedly defeat both my father and mother. But my mother, Arya, once told me that the world was at peace, the divine was benevolent, and that defying the heavens with such power would only bring disaster to the realms. So she took me to the great eastern marshlands to find the Elder, who forcibly stripped away more than half of my strength. Funny enough, I owe my current recovery of power to you." Celeste froze, as if recalling something. Her already pale face turned even whiter. I chuckled darkly. "What, did you remember? When I went to the Elder to reclaim my powers, he refused. He spent over 100 years lecturing me on harmony and balance, saying that killing you would disrupt the heavens and plunge the mortal world into chaos. Though I was numb to most sensations, I still felt pity. It was only because of the Elder's restraint that I hadn't stormed the heavens to kill you. But then, 2 weeks ago, you killed him. Shall I guess why? Oh, I remember now. Wasn't it because your lover wanted to use the Elder's sacred tree for a bed frame? And so, in a fit of rage, you killed him for your lover's whim. To be fair, killing him isn't entirely unjustifiable. After all living beings must sacrifice for the sake of your love. But you see, the moment you killed him, the power he had sealed within me returned. So I really must thank you. But tell me, how could I possibly let you go after you annihilated my clan and killed my brother?" As I spoke, I pressed the sword harder against her neck. Just as Celeste seemed destined to meet her end under my blade, I felt resistance against my hand. I sneered and looked up at the Sovereign. "What's this? Done playing dead, Lord? Finally decided to intervene?" The Sovereign spoke with an air of piety, his tones steeped in compassion. "You just mentioned that you have a measure of mercy in your heart. Do you understand the consequences of killing Celeste?" I didn't hesitate. "The righteous one descends. Peace reigns over the lands." The Sovereign faltered, clearly not expecting my response. I smirked coldly. "Celeste as the so-called ruler is anything but merciful. Her mind is consumed by love and lust, treating human lives as mere playthings. Anyone would be a better ruler than her." I left no room for argument. Severely injured and silent until now, Celeste couldn't hold back anymore. She roared in anger. "How dare you speak of me this way? If I did all this for personal gain, I would gladly accept the world's condemnation. But everything I've done is for Dusk. He is the Ancient who sacrificed himself for the heavens and earth. Every living being owes him their existence." "The Ancient?" I laughed, holding my sword aloft. "I may not know what an ancient truly is, but I deeply understand a person's character. Even after countless reincarnations, it doesn't change. My mother once told me that the Ancient loved all living beings and was willing to sacrifice himself for the 3 realms without hesitation. Such a deity could never be compared to the likes of Dusk." I finished speaking and glanced at Dusk, whose face had turned deathly pale, his body trembling uncontrollably. My grin widened. "What's this? Did I strike a nerve?" Dusk stared at me, panic written all over his face. "You're lying. I am the Ancient." "I am." I continued to press him. "You say you're the Ancient. What proof do you have?" "I have it. I have proof," he stammered. With a pale face, Dusk began disrobing in front of everyone, showing no regard for the gathered celestial beings. He knew well that if he were truly the Ancient, all living beings would fight to protect him for his contributions millennia ago. Killing him would be no easy feat, but if he failed to prove his claim, he would undoubtedly face my wrath. As Dusk pulled his robes aside, revealing his pale shoulder, an intricate white lotus mark came into view, lifelike in its detail. The moment the mark was revealed, all the celestial beings' gazes turned reverent. Celeste's eyes burned with fervor. Dusk, satisfied with the reaction, tilted his head arrogantly and looked at me. This ancient lotus is undeniable proof of my identity. I stared at the white lotus on his shoulder for a long moment, before suddenly breaking into laughter, bending over as I cackled. So that's how it is, how amusing. Celeste glared at me. What are you laughing at? Years ago I searched far and wide across all lands. Dusk is the only one with the white lotus mark. He is the ancient. It cannot be fake. I shot her a cold glance. Cannot be fake, I muttered, then began removing my own robes. As my shoulder was revealed, a glowing white lotus appeared, identical in size and shape to Dusk's, but unlike his lifeless mark, mine pulsed with vitality, as if imbued with life. The 33 heavens, filled with countless gods and celestial beings, fell completely silent. The silence was so profound you could hear a pin drop. Dusk's face turned ghostly pale in an instant. Celeste stared at me in a frenzy, a mix of madness and obsession in her eyes. Impossible, how can this be? I raised my hand and slapped Celeste hard across the face. You destroyed my clan in the name of love. And now what? Are you going to change your story and tell me it was all a misunderstanding? Celeste tugged at the hem of my dress, her voice trembling as she desperately tried to explain. Phoenix, everything I did was for you. I only mistook him for you because I missed you so much. Please don't blame me. I cast a cold glance at her and replied icily, Don't shove your foolishness and cruelty onto me, Celeste. You are utterly repulsive. Without another word or concern for the anguish on her face, I sheathed my sword and walked step by step toward Dusk. His entire body trembled with fear as he shrank back, retreating until he was cornered with nowhere left to go. Finally, he collapsed at my feet, sobbing and pleading, Please spare me, have mercy, my lord. I lifted his chin with the tip of my sword and asked, Now tell me, how did that white lotus mark appear on your shoulder? How did you deceive everyone? If you dare utter a single lie, I'll obliterate your very soul. Dusk stammered, his voice shaking. I was born the lowest of the low among the demon clan, a prince despised by all, adrift like a rootless weed. I thought my life would remain in eternal darkness until the day Celestial combed through the realms during the great war between gods and demons in search of your reincarnation. By chance, my mother had once seen you in her youth and learned that the lotus mark on the shoulder is unique to you. Out of pity for my plight, she sacrificed her cultivation to forge this false mark on me, hoping I could rise to the 33 heavens and carve out a future. As he finished, Dusk pressed his forehead into the ground, his voice breaking. Please, Lord, spare my life. I don't want to die. I want to live. I studied him for a long time before speaking. Do you remember the day you slaughtered my Kirin clan? Do you remember if my younger brother begged for his life as you are doing now? He must not have wanted to die either. Or have you forgotten who my brother was? He was the one with the fire cloud insignia on his brow, the little Kirin whose skull you cracked open while he was still alive to feast on his brain. I paused as if recalling something trivial. Oh wait, my mistake. He was so young then. He couldn't even speak, let alone beg. He probably just cried out in pain, didn't he? As I recounted the searing hatred etched into my soul, Dusk realized there was no escape for him. He stopped groveling and snapped into a deranged rage. What did I do wrong? I was a victim too. All I wanted was to stop being bullied. What did I do wrong? I looked down at him, my voice steady. No matter how much you suffer, it doesn't justify warming yourself with others' blood. What I despise is not just your impersonation of my identity, but the way you reveled in your stolen power, slaughtering innocents in your arrogance. Dusk continued to howl. I did nothing wrong, nothing. It's the heavens that wronged me. I shook my head. A summer insect cannot comprehend ice. Without hesitation, I raised my sword and sliced open his skull. With precise spell work, I slowly drained the contents of his brain. Dusk writhed on the ground in torment, his words dissolving into incoherent moans. He looked up at me, pleading, Please, I beg you, Lord, just kill me outright. I shook my head, smiling faintly. Oh no, that's not enough. You need to experience every ounce of suffering the little Kirin endured. It took Dusk half an hour of agonized screaming before he finally succumbed. I wiped the blood from my sword and walked toward Celeste. She stared at me in utter despair, her eyes red with anguish. You'll never love me, will you? I nodded, pointing my sword at her. No, I won't. Not in this life, not in eternity. And I will kill you. Her voice cracked as she demanded, "Why? We've lived alongside the heavens and earth for over 10 millennia. We are ancient beings. Why would you kill me for the sake of lowly creatures you've only known for a fraction of that time?" I replied, "All life is equal. There is no high or low, noble or base. You, Celeste, are arrogant, ruthless, and contemptuous of all other beings. You annihilated the beast clans, and now I will use your divine soul to nourish them, granting them rebirth." As my sword descended, Sovereign appeared in a flash, stepping between Celeste and me. "Phoenix, as a god, do you truly intend to jeopardize the balance of the 3 realms by killing her?" I sneered at him. "Oh, now you want to lecture me about balance? When I was weaker than you, you taught me that strength was the only law. Now that I'm stronger, you try to suppress me with mortal principles. You think you can have it both ways? Where was your justice when Celeste was slaughtering innocents? You turned a blind eye then. Now, I will kill her, and I won't spare you either." Sovereign's expression faltered as he and Celeste joined forces against me. But even together they could not withstand 100 blows from my blade. I tore apart their divine souls and scattered the remnants over the beast clans to nourish the spirits of the dead. With a single stroke of my sword, I split open the 33 heavens. Gods and immortals cowered in terror, falling to their knees before me. None dared to speak. I looked at them and said, "Celeste is dead. I don't care who takes up the mantle of enforcer among you, but if such atrocities occur again, I won't hesitate to return and level the heavens once more." One sword stroke shattered the firmament, and all the gods and Buddhas knelt at my feet in silence. I returned to the Kirin clan with Drake. He worked tirelessly every day, planting trees and rebuilding homes to restore the land ravaged by the massacre a century ago. During quiet nights, we would lie in the grass and gaze at the stars. Drake loved to ask, "Phoenix, do you think they'll come back someday?" I would always answer firmly, "They will." Then, staring at the countless stars above, I would think to myself, when that little Kirin returns, he'll probably have learned to call me brother. By then, no matter what Mother says, I won't go buy him candied apples. I poured my heart and soul into reviving the company, only for my CEO wife to kick me out of the executive team so her lover could take my place. The two of them didn't even bother hiding it. They stood right in front of me, pouring their hearts out to each other. She cried hysterically, begging me to hand over my shares, while he, full of passion, declared, "If I were your husband, I'd never make you go through this. A husband shouldn't keep a secret stash of money." I flipped the table and flatly refused, letting the chips fall where they may. The company plunged into chaos. My wife cried and begged me to come back, pleading for my help. I agreed on the spot. But in the very next second, I pulled a divorce agreement from my pocket and slapped it on the table in front of her. How could I not care? You still owe me and we're far from settled. The first day of freedom from work was bliss. At 27, I finally realized how joyful it is to wake up naturally without an alarm. I stretched lazily in bed and reached for my phone to check the time. The moment I unlocked it, dozens of calls and messages flooded the screen. I casually answered one, and Maxwell's voice came bellowing through the line, full of frustration. "Sincere, why haven't you been coming to the office? The proposal for Leo's side is due tomorrow, and no one's handling it. We're losing our minds over here." I flipped onto my side, adjusted my pillow, and replied calmly, "Maxwell, at the company meeting 2 days ago, wasn't it the boss herself who said I was on leave? I've already handed off all my responsibilities. Why don't you go and find Ethan to handle it?" Maxwell hesitated before stammering, "Ethan is still adjusting." I chuckled. "Then I guess you'll just have to help him out a bit more." "All right, if there's nothing else, I'm hanging up." Without waiting for him to respond, I hung up, tossed the phone aside, and pulled the covers back over me. It was only 9 a.m. I could still squeeze in another nap. Whatever mess was happening at the company, it wasn't my concern anymore. After all, I was just an employee personally approved for leave by the boss herself. But my peace didn't last long. A loud banging at the door disrupted my nap. "Sincere, get out here." That voice shattered any chance of a dream. Irritated, I got up, flung open the door, and asked, "What now?" Victoria stood there, one hand on her hip, the other jabbing at my chest. She complained, "Really? You're sulking just because you didn't get a promotion or a year-end bonus? You know there's still so much work to be done. Can't you just pick up some other tasks if you've already handed off your current ones? I rubbed my ears and muttered under my breath. I think I've just been mentally polluted. Better take another nap to recover. Then, before she could react, I slammed the door shut and locked it. Victoria was stunned by my reaction. She started yelling through the door, "Sincere, if you keep this up, we might as well get divorced." I rolled my eyes. She always used this as a threat. Leaning against the door, I pinched the bridge of my nose and sneered, "Fine, let's get divorced. Tomorrow, at the courthouse. Whoever doesn't show up is a coward." Her tone softened immediately. When tough tactics didn't work, she switched to pleading. "Sincere, I'm sorry, I was just anxious earlier, but the company is in chaos right now. Can you please help me out? It's almost New Year's, and after this, we can go skiing together. Didn't you always say you wanted to show me something different?" As her voice turned soft and sweet, I found my thoughts drifting. Victoria, my boss, my wife. With my skills, it wouldn't have been hard for me to land a job at a Fortune 500 company or even start my own business. But because Victoria and I had been together since our school days, I turned down a 6-figure salary to join her family's company. Calling it a family business was generous. It was really just a small renovation company passed down from her grandfather. By the time it reached Victoria, it was on the brink of collapse, bloated with unqualified relatives on the payroll. I took drastic steps to reform it, risking everything to secure investments and save it from ruin. In return, Victoria gave me a measly 5% stake and kept me stuck in a team leader position for 5 years. Once the company was back on its feet, I remained just as busy. Meanwhile, Victoria, unable to handle my long hours, found herself a boy toy. She called it mentoring a student and even brought him into the company last week, giving him my position. The promotion I was supposed to get? Gone. To top it off, she was worried I'd clash with her lover at work, so she told me to take some time off. That's when I decided to lie flat and do nothing at home. But the boy toy was completely incompetent. Now everything's falling apart again, and of course, they're turning to me to fix it. It's laughable. I do the work, he gets the money. What a deal. I used to love Victoria, willing to sacrifice everything for her. Then I stayed for the shares, unwilling to let 5 years of effort go to waste. Now, I'm done with both her and the company. Let's see how they manage without me. In the end, I did return to the company. The moment I stepped through the door, several employees rushed over. "Sin, Leo needs to discuss the proposal details. The meeting's tomorrow." "Sin, the data update for the Triumph account is wrong. They're asking for a redo." "Sin, the client wants changes to the design draft. I've sent the updated requirements to your email." "Sin, the annual report is out. Do you want to review it?" I sighed and waved them off. All right, stop crowding me." I made a stop gesture with my hands, but they just kept pressing in. I was shoved right up against the glass door, cornered. Frustrated, I took a deep breath and shouted, "Can't you understand plain words? Stop pushing." Usually in the office, my motto was to avoid unnecessary trouble. Whenever there was an issue, I'd lend a hand. But now, these people were walking all over me. I pointed at each one of them and started calling them out. "Sam, the meeting time for the proposal is already set. You can go by yourself. You don't need me there. Chris, double-checking data is something anyone can do. If you can do it, great. If not, then get lost. And you, Mike, didn't you know the handover has been completed? The person you should be looking for now is Ethan, not me. Got it?" The ones I called out quickly lowered their heads, speechless. After I went through the group, a cup of water was handed to me from the side. I glanced over, and the person immediately avoided eye contact. "Sin, I'm just here to drop off a form. Surely you're not going to yell at me too, right?" I chuckled, patted him on the shoulder and said, "Not bad. You've got potential." Then I put my arm around his shoulder, and we walked back into the office together. The other employees scattered to avoid crossing my path. No one wanted to risk being the next target of my wrath, except for Ethan, of course. Heading straight to my office, I found Ethan already waiting with a freshly brewed cup of coffee. "Sin, you're here. You must be tired. Come, have a seat," he said. I raised the plastic cup in my hand and replied, "This will do. And don't stare at me, and definitely don't rush to thank me. Victoria and I already agreed. I'm just here to keep an eye on things. I won't lift a finger to help with your tasks. We need to avoid any appearance of impropriety, you understand?" Chapter 4. Once seated, I started playing games. After an hour of Candy Crush, Angry Birds, and tending to my virtual farm, Ethan finally lost his patience. "Sin, can you take a look at this proposal? Do you think it's feasible?" he asked. I took the tablet from him, skimmed through it, and then flashed him a bright grin. My verdict? It's garbage. Sprinkle some birdseed on the keyboard, and a chicken could type up something better. You've got a $50,000 budget for materials, and you quoted $20,000. What's the deal? Is the client your dad? Are you planning to fork out the remaining $30,000 from your own pocket? The office was filled with my sarcastic remarks all day. Finally, Ethan broke down, a grown man in his 20s, reduced to tears after being scolded. He stormed out, only to return with Victoria in tow. "Sin, I know you're unhappy with Ethan," Victoria began indignantly. "He's fresh out of school and still lacks experience, but isn't that exactly why he needs a mentor like you? Besides, this is one of our year-end projects. Wrapping it up early benefits everyone, including you as a shareholder. If the proposal is delayed, your dividends will be delayed too." Leaning back in my chair, I lazily glanced at the two of them. Ethan, who was a head taller than Victoria, was now cowering behind her like a child, glaring at me with a mix of defiance and challenge. "So what exactly are you trying to say?" I asked impatiently. Victoria laid out two options. Either you help Ethan with his tasks, he learns quickly if you're nice to him, or you return your shares. We'll compensate you with a fixed amount going forward so you won't have to worry about the company's ups and downs anymore. I put down my phone, stood up and gave her a round of applause. Well, Victoria, quite the imagination you've got there. Did you forget why you gave me those shares in the first place? You said it symbolized that, whether in business or in love, we were a team. What now? Planning to team up with someone else? I stared her down. On the surface, this company can't function without me. But deep down, you're the one who wants me gone the most, aren't you? Victoria, you're not exactly a genius, but your scheming is impressive. Caught off guard, both of them froze, their expressions betraying their panic. Victoria frowned and word by word retorted, "This is my company. I'll do what I see fit, and I don't need you to teach me how to run it." Ethan chimed in, "While you've contributed your fair share, Sin, the highest position you've held here is team leader. I thought you'd have come to terms with that by now. Besides, Victoria's cousin has his sights set on this company. To fend him off, Victoria needs that 20% stake. With it, she'll be the majority shareholder. If I were her husband, I'd give her the shares without hesitation. No need to make things difficult for her." Hearing this, Victoria looked at Ethan with teary eyes, clearly moved. "Ethan, you really understand me," she choked out. I rolled my eyes. What kind of groveling nonsense was this? Watching the two of them exchange gazes, their faces inches apart, I let out a loud cough to remind them of my presence. "Excuse me, but are you two just going to pretend I'm not here?" I quipped. "Look, I've known about your little affair for a while, but I'm not so thick-skinned as to keep wearing this green hat. Here's the deal, I'll sell my shares and file for divorce. Whatever mess you two create after that is none of my concern." A glint of triumph flashed in Ethan's eyes as he pulled Victoria aside. The two whispered heatedly for a moment before returning. This time, Victoria's demeanor had softened. "Sin, I know you're upset right now, so I won't hold what you just said against you," she said gently. "Don't think we're targeting you. I'm saying this for your own good. People need to move forward. Why don't you take the day off and report to your new department tomorrow? I believe with your abilities, you'll climb back up in no time." My lips twitched. For a moment, I wasn't sure whether to laugh or to laugh or to laugh again. Where on earth had Victoria learned her way with words? Had she forgotten that just a few days ago her excuse for suspending me was that I was incompetent? Not to mention that we'd known each other for so many years, and yet she thought 2 measly lines of nonsense would be enough to manipulate me? I turned and headed for the door. Without looking back, I said, "Don't bother, check the desk. There's something good for you." What I left behind was a resignation letter and a divorce agreement. Once I got home, I quickly packed a few clothes, preparing to leave. Just then, my phone rang. It was Leo. "Hey, Sincere," he began. "I heard you're resigning. Finally leaving that lousy company, huh? Good for you. How about coming to work with me? I'll give you a manager position right away." I smirked and replied, "Thanks for the offer, Uncle L, but I need to head home first." "Fair enough," he said. "It's been, 5 years since you've been back? Don't hold grudges against your parents. Even though your father's too proud to contact you, he's been looking out for you all these years, asking people to take care of you. That's the only reason we've been doing business with Victoria's family." Sure, I said. "Do me a favor, though. Let my dad know he doesn't need to keep cutting Victoria any slack because of me. We're done." After hanging up, I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the train station. Not even Victoria knew that my family was, well, quite wealthy, top 3 in the state to be exact. Back when I fell for her at first sight, I rejected an arranged marriage my family had planned for me. It pissed my dad off so much that he threatened to cut ties with me. Stubborn as I was, I moved out and lived a tough life for a few years. This time, going home, I brought a lot of supplements and gifts for my parents. The moment I walked through the door, I started apologizing profusely. After a long string of heartfelt words, their expressions finally softened. My mom patted my back and said, "We know everything that's been going on. Just relax now and leave the rest to your father." My dad, however, scowled and said, "How could you let people walk all over you like that?" I rolled my eyes. "What, do you expect me to fight over someone like her?" "She made her choice," he said firmly. "Now she has to live with the consequences, for better or worse." After making peace with my parents, I grabbed my suitcase and set off again. This time I headed up north and found a ski instructor. Victoria had said one thing that rang true. I'd wanted to ski for a long time, but I didn't need her to do it. 2 months later, after mastering the basics, I turned my phone back on. Hundreds of messages flooded in, the most recent being a voice message from Victoria. Sincere. Her voice trembled. "I know I was wrong. Please come back so we can talk." I skimmed through her messages. They started with accusations like, "How could you walk out on the company at such a critical moment? Do you think this is responsible? Sincere, you've really grown, haven't you? Not even going home anymore? Fine, if you've got the guts, don't ever come back." Then came the confusion. "Why are Leo's big clients all pulling out? Did you say something behind my back? Sincere, do you have to make things this ugly?" Finally, there were pleas. "There's nothing going on between Ethan and me, not like you think. We've been friends for 7 years. Why don't you trust me? I can't live without you, Sincere. Please come back." Victoria probably didn't even realize how transparent she was. Everything she did, everything she wanted, was written all over her face. My family had opposed our relationship from the start after investigating her background. The Victoria family was large, with 20 or 30 relatives within 3 generations, all depending on a barely surviving company. Her childhood hadn't been easy either. Though she was an only child, her male cousins believed they were entitled to the family assets. Her grandfather's will prevented them from outright claiming shares, so they resorted to targeting her in every underhanded way possible, wishing for her downfall. When I learned of her hardships, I was heartbroken and swore to clear the obstacles for her. During my company reforms, I made plenty of enemies, becoming a pariah. Both families didn't approve of me. Yet Victoria would always hide behind me, acting like an obedient, indecisive wife. Whenever I offended someone, she'd put on a pitiful face and apologize on my behalf, keeping herself squeaky clean. I was blinded by so-called love. It wasn't until now that I saw her for who she really was. But none of that mattered anymore. It was time to reclaim my life. Returning to my family's business, the first deal I took on was a collaboration with Victoria's company. I glanced at my dad, who was leisurely brewing tea. "You and her haven't settled things, have you?" he said. "I'm just giving you a chance." Fair enough. Victoria and I were still technically married, so 3 months later I went back. The company had changed drastically. More than half the desks were empty, and the receptionist was a new face. She smiled and asked how she could help. "I'm here to meet with Victoria to discuss a collaboration," I said. We agreed on this time. Her smile froze. "I'm sorry, but Miss Torrey isn't in right now." I raised an eyebrow. "Not here? I came all the way to the office and she's standing me up?" The receptionist bowed slightly, apologizing. "I'm really sorry. I'm not sure either. She left about half an hour ago and hasn't returned yet. Why don't you take a seat and wait? I'll pour you a cup of coffee." I was also curious about what tricks Victoria was up to, so I agreed. Not long after, someone approached me and said, "Sin, are you planning to come back?" I looked up and saw the same person who had poured me water last time. What was his name again? "Sin, my name is Zach. You can just call me Z," he replied. "Oh, Z," I said. I noticed a lot of desks are empty. You're still here? Z tugged at his desk nameplate and gave a bitter smile. Yeah, too many people left. Even a mere intern like me has now become a team leader. Taking advantage of Victoria's absence, I waved Z over to sit down. What's been going on these past few months? How did things end up like this? Seeing my curiosity, Z seemed relieved to find someone he could vent to, and he unloaded everything in one go. It turned out that after I left, Ethan's flaws became apparent. The reason he had been able to win Victoria over was his reasonably good looks and his ability to spout sweet talk, not any actual competence. Within just a week of starting, he botched 3 deals in a row, one of which was with a long-standing client, Leo. Although I knew Uncle L had terminated the contract because of me, that didn't stop gossip from spreading like wildfire around the office. Ethan, an outsider brought into the company, wasn't well liked to begin with. When I was there, my team's workload was manageable, and I always cleaned up any messes. But with Ethan, it became a case of several people having to share his workload, clean up after him, and still deal with his bad attitude. It didn't take long for the most capable employees to leave after collecting their year-end bonuses. Victoria had no choice but to hire replacements, but even the hiring process was taken over by Ethan. Afraid that new hires might outshine him, Ethan dismissed anyone with better credentials or skills. The result was a team filled with sycophants who couldn't even collectively handle the workload I used to manage alone. The company lost several major clients, and thanks to Ethan's disastrous hiring decisions, their financial burden only grew heavier. It was around this time that Victoria started to think of me fondly again and wanted me to return to clean up the mess. Unfortunately for her, she couldn't get in touch with me. Victoria grew increasingly frustrated with Ethan's antics and ignored him for a few days. But somehow Ethan managed to sweet-talk her back into forgiving him. Not only that, but they began flaunting their relationship openly in the company. Those who remained in the office fell over themselves to flatter the pair, calling them a perfect match. With Victoria appeased, Ethan's behavior became even worse. For instance, if he didn't like someone, he would resort to underhanded tactics to frame them and then exaggerate the situation to Victoria. Victoria, swayed by her emotions, would obediently fire those employees. Ethan used these incidents to assert his dominance in the company, oblivious to the fact that the company had already spent a fortune on severance packages. Today's events were even more absurd. Ethan fell down a staircase, not more than a few steps, but insisted on being hospitalized. Despite knowing there was a client meeting that afternoon, Victoria chose to accompany him to the hospital. I listened to Z's gossip until it was time for him to clock out. Only then did Victoria finally return. 3 months had passed and Victoria looked visibly tired, with fine lines starting to appear on her face. When she saw me, her eyes widened, and she rushed over with a delighted expression. "Sincere, you finally came back. I knew you couldn't bear to leave the company or me." Before she could finish her sentence, I brushed her hand away and coldly said, "Miss Victoria, please watch yourself. I'm here to talk business." I waved the folder I was holding in front of her and sneered, "Quite the power move, Miss Victoria. This is the first time I've seen someone make a client wait 4 hours without so much as an apology." Victoria swallowed hard, disbelief written all over her face. "You're with Novatech? How is that possible? The company never approved your resignation." I closed my eyes and sighed. "Stop being unreasonable, will you? Not only did I submit my resignation and complete my handover, but I've also been gone for 3 months. Even if we take a step back, who says I can't work 2 jobs? And frankly, it's not your place to question me." I continued, "With the way your company handles things, I don't think this partnership is worth pursuing." Victoria finally seemed to realize that I was no longer someone she could manipulate at will. Panicked, she grabbed my arm and said, "Sincere, can we talk this through? I had my reasons today." Ethan fell down the stairs and almost broke his leg. I couldn't help but laugh. Almost broke his leg. So he didn't actually break it, did he? Ethan's what, in his late 20s by now? Don't tell me he can't go to the hospital on his own. Or are you saying that in a company this large there's no one else who could accompany him? Or is it that in your eyes a multi-million-dollar contract is less important than Ethan? Victoria was left speechless by my barrage of questions, only managing to stammer. "He did get hurt in my company." I raised my hand to stop her from continuing. "Look, I don't care about your romantic drama. I didn't wait 4 hours today just to argue with you. We can continue discussing this partnership, but first, you need to come with me to finalize the divorce. My tone left no room for negotiation. Victoria still brought me into her office and began explaining the design proposal for this project. It wasn't a small deal. This was a design and renovation contract for a newly opened branch office. If it went through, her company could easily earn $1 million. But as soon as I heard her stumbling explanation, I knew something was off. Resting my head on my hand, I smirked and asked, "Who came up with this proposal? Was it Ethan? I remember you once said he was quick to learn. How is it that he can't even get the numbers right now? For 8,000 square feet, do you really need 2,000 tiles? Should I get a grade schooler to do the math for him? Ethan's fancy degree from Stanford, did he buy that too?" Victoria fell silent, her face pale. I didn't have the patience to listen to her make excuses. Standing up, I said directly, "If that's the case, then there's no need for us to collaborate." I turned to leave. She rushed over, grabbing my sleeve with a forced, awkward smile. "Can we not get divorced?" she asked. Victoria's logic never ceased to amaze me. I chuckled. "Didn't you used to draw a firm line between work and family? How come you're suddenly mixing them up now?" It was true, no one at the company knew Victoria and I were married. She insisted it was to avoid accusations of nepotism and to steer clear of troublesome relatives. Because of that, I had hidden our marriage certificate for 5 years. But as the burdens on my shoulders grew heavier, the time we spent together dwindled. Even though we slept under the same roof every night, our relationship gradually eroded. At this point, we felt less like a married couple and more like 2 roommates. So when I found out Victoria was having an affair, I wasn't particularly surprised. Signing the divorce papers had stung a little, sure, but I'd already been emotionally detached for a long time. That day, Z texted me, "Sin, did you hear? Tori's in the hospital." I raised an eyebrow and replied, "What happened?" It turned out some of Victoria's relatives had come looking for her. Back when her company was starting out, 70% of the shares were dispersed among her relatives. Each one of them had a hand in the company's management, creating chaos. I'd used my personal savings to help Victoria buy back those shares bit by bit. Once the reforms succeeded, Victoria inexplicably decided to sell some of the shares at a high price. At the time, the numbers she reported to me were small, so I didn't think much of it. But she'd lied. With the company's earnings over the years, we could have lived comfortably into old age. But Victoria couldn't hold on to money. Like a lovesick fool, she spent it all on Ethan, buying him luxury watches and sports cars while she wore outdated clothes. Even before I resigned, she was already struggling financially. Her shares dwindled further and further. When she realized she was no longer the majority shareholder, she turned her sights on my 5%. No wonder she'd been dropping hints about wanting 20%. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming it was just Ethan misspeaking. Turns out they'd been planning this all along. Now the company was in the hands of her cousin, Dawn, who was quite capable. He was running his own startup and wasn't the type to freeload. When he announced Victoria's suspension from the company, she was so furious she fainted. The hospital diagnosed her with early-stage brain cancer. My feelings toward Victoria were complicated. I couldn't forgive her betrayal, but I had genuinely loved her once. In the end, I went to the hospital to see her. When she saw me, she burst into tears, clutching my hand as she choked out, "I'm sorry, Sincere. It's only now I've realized you're the only one who ever truly cared about me." I placed a bouquet of lilies on her bedside table and raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what makes you say that?" Through her tearful rambling, I pieced together the full story. After Victoria's downfall, Ethan had been removed from his position as well. She'd only seen him once in the past few days, and that was when he came to break up with her. He told her he needed a sugar mama who could let him live a carefree life, and Victoria was no longer capable of that. Ethan had taken mooching to an art form, almost causing Victoria to faint again in anger. She screamed at him to return the money, but Ethan had already prepared for this. He'd left behind proof that all the money Victoria had given him was voluntary. Even if she sued, the time and effort would only recover a fraction of it. Now, with her terminal illness, she needed significant funds for treatment. The only kind thing Ethan had done was pay a $5,000 deposit for her hospital bills before disappearing completely. Her relatives had visited her a few times as well, but only to demand she hand over her remaining shares. None of them care whether I live or die, Victoria sobbed. Even now, when I'm in the hospital, all they want is to strip me of everything I have left. After venting, she looked up at me cautiously and asked, "Sincere, you won't abandon me, will you?" I nodded. Before she could smile, I added, "How could I possibly abandon you? We haven't even divided our assets yet. Don't you still have 2 houses under your name? Let me know when you're ready to transfer them to me." Victoria, shameless as ever, refused and promptly kicked me out. She said, "I won't divorce you. I know you acted impulsively. Don't worry, I'll wait for you to come back." Then she added, "You just want to abandon me. You used to say you cared about me, that you'd take care of me for the rest of my life. We've been together for 7 years, and now that I have cancer, you still want a divorce. You're no different from those awful relatives of mine." It was hard to believe these contradictory words came out of Victoria's mouth one after the other. People nearby, overhearing her, cast judgmental glances at me. They whispered, "This guy looks decent, but who knew he'd do something like this? He wasted 7 years of her life. Now it's time for him to pay up." Victoria hadn't expected to get their sympathy. Emboldened, she said, "Did you hear that? You're still my husband. You should be taking care of me." My expression turned cold, and I chuckled. "Victoria, if you've been keeping track of these 7 years, you should know by now that moral blackmail doesn't work on me. Fine, you want drama? You want a standoff? I'll play along. I'll cover your medical expenses, but once the separation period is over, I'll file for divorce. Let's see who outlasts whom." With that, I turned and left, leaving Victoria standing there, silently shedding tears. The next day, the internet was flooded with hate directed at me. Someone had recorded our conversation and edited it to paint me as a scumbag, adding a fabricated backstory for good measure. Outraged netizens hurled accusations at me, calling me irresponsible. Worse yet, my name, address, and phone number were leaked online. My phone buzzed incessantly with a barrage of messages and calls, filled with language so harsh it needed censorship. I glanced at it briefly, then turned it off. Honestly, I found it amusing. It wasn't like I only had one phone or one house. Trying to crush me with online harassment? Amateurs. My mom called, asking, "What's all this about online? Do you need me to suppress the buzz?" I declined, replying, "Actually, I hope the video's popularity keeps growing. The higher they lift her up, the harder she'll fall." Hearing this, my mom wasted no time and invested thousands of dollars to boost the video's visibility. A few days later, after someone defaced my property with paint, Dawn showed up at my door with a bottle of wine as a gift. I asked, "Was it you who leaked all that online?" Dawn chuckled lightly. "Why would I? You've already resigned from the company. I have no reason to target you." I shook my head. "Not necessarily. Aren't you afraid I might get back together with Victoria?" Dawn's sharp gaze met mine. "You're not that kind of man, and I know it." He continued, "Honestly, I know you don't care about public opinion and could easily handle it. But with the evidence I have, it'll be even easier for you to get what you want." I leaned back, sinking halfway into my beanbag chair. "And what do you want in return?" Dawn opened the wine and poured me a glass. "To earn a favor from Sincere. Nothing more, nothing less. Just something within your capacity." I accepted the glass and said, "How curious. Since when did the family produce someone smart? I thought they'd only cling to their old money." Truthfully, the moment I heard Dawn's name, I had already received his dossier. Dawn was an illegitimate child, only acknowledged by the family after proving his worth. His return wasn't out of sentiment, but to treat the family business as his stepping stone. He harbored little affection for them. His mother had thought she'd found true love, only to discover during her pregnancy that the man was already married. Furious, she broke it off, but by then the fetus was 4 months along and an abortion would have endangered her life. Dawn entered a world where no one anticipated his arrival, yet he carved his path alone. Looking at his resume, I couldn't help but reflect, in this world there's no such thing as the worst. There's always someone worse off. When I loved Victoria, even the smallest grievance against her would break my heart. Now that I no longer cared for her, even her cancer didn't stir an ounce of sympathy in me. Dawn didn't take advantage of me. He simply bought the 5% stake I owned at a fair price and expressed hopes for future collaboration. The tables turned quickly. Once someone uncovered my identity as the sole heir of the Sincere family, I issued a statement through the company's official account. Combining my evidence with Dawn's, I released everything, including full footage from the hospital, confirming Victoria's infidelity during our marriage. The internet erupted. She's playing the victim? She cheated first, and when her lover ran off, she blamed her husband for not taking care of her? What a nutcase. If I were in his shoes, I'd lose it too. Moral blackmail? No thanks. Apologies flooded in. Sorry, sincere, we misjudged you. With the evidence out, public opinion swiftly turned against Victoria. Even some who had been manipulated at the hospital to side with her showed up to berate her. Unable to handle the stress, Victoria fainted. When she regained consciousness, her brain tumor had worsened. The doctor warned that without surgery it could press on her optic nerve, potentially causing blindness. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Out of fear, she reached out to me, pleading, "Just stay with me for this surgery. After it's done, I'll agree to the divorce." I agreed. But before 2 days had passed, I went to the police station first. Why? Because Victoria had an accident. She fell down the stairs, hit her head on the ground, and ended up with a deep gash. Initially, it didn't seem like a big deal, but when she woke up, she started crying and shouting that someone was trying to murder her. The doctor couldn't convince her otherwise, so they checked the surveillance footage. Sure enough, someone had pushed her from behind. The person was wearing a mask and glasses, making it hard to identify them. Victoria filed a police report and said she thought I might know the person responsible. The whole thing was pinned on me. Well, she wasn't entirely wrong. I did recognize the person. When I first discovered Victoria was cheating on me, I followed her movements closely. The loving silhouette of her and her lover is etched in my mind, unforgettable. So the moment I saw the figure in the surveillance footage, I knew exactly who it was. It was Ethan. With my testimony, the police quickly arrested Ethan. Knowing he couldn't escape, Ethan confessed in hopes of leniency. It turned out Dawn had made a deal with Victoria regarding company shares. Dawn promised to help her retrieve the money Ethan had and sabotage Ethan's new relationship. Ethan had recently started dating a wealthy married woman, but her husband, who had an even worse temper than mine, found out about Ethan. Furious, the husband had Ethan stripped of his clothes, dragged through the streets, and publicly humiliated. After that, Ethan's reputation was thoroughly destroyed. But misfortunes rarely come alone. Around the same time, Dawn and Victoria joined forces to sue Ethan for embezzlement, demanding he return the stolen funds. Ethan was unhinged. Unable to cope with his own misery, he wanted to drag others down with him. Since he couldn't touch me or Dawn, he targeted Victoria. Victoria refused to settle, and Ethan was sentenced to 6 years in prison. His car, house, and other assets were auctioned off to repay his debts. Victoria's surgery was a success. The doctor said as long as she took her medication on time and attended regular checkups, she could live several more years. Coincidentally, the day she was discharged from the hospital was also the day we finalized our divorce. As we walked out of the courthouse, Victoria looked at me hesitantly and asked, "Do you think you'll get married again?" I casually shoved the divorce certificate into my pocket and replied, "Hard to say. If I meet someone who makes my heart race, I'll pursue them. If not, it doesn't matter. I've got enough money to retire comfortably." Seeing my indifferent attitude, Victoria's eyes reddened. "You're always like this. It's as if nothing can ever affect you. You know, at first I didn't want to cheat. I just wanted to get your attention, to see if you'd get jealous or angry for me. But over time, Ethan lifted me up so high. He made me feel like I was his whole world. That's what I wanted to feel from you." I glanced at her and said flatly, "There's no point in talking about this now. Maybe I did some things wrong, but at least I never betrayed you. Your regrets, your apologies, and your love, none of it can stir any reaction in me anymore. Starting today, we're strangers. Take care of yourself, Victoria." I'll never tell her that I was once lost too, that I cried in the dead of night, that I cursed the world for playing cruel jokes on me. But people move forward. Whatever doesn't kill me only fuels my drive to keep going. So what if I've lost love? There's still a whole world of beauty waiting for me to explore.